Was Saturday night's race at Daytona for the NASCAR Cup Series a good race? Right off the bat, I'm going to give this race a 90. And I know if you watched the TikTok video I did about this, I gave it an 86. But having gone back, rewatched the broadcast because I was at the race, I decided to bump it up to a 90. I think it was the best super speedway race we've seen for the Gen 7 car. Easily the best, right? It was absolutely incredible. And I know Chase Elliott fans and the people that fiend for wrecks are probably going to want to knock it down a few points. But I'll be honest, this race had literally everything, and it was one of the most intense super speedway races you'll likely ever see. NASCAR moved the playoff cutoff race to Daytona for this reason, to make everybody sit on the edge of their seats, to make the drivers squirm in their seats, and give everybody a show. And what we saw on Saturday night was an absolute show. I mean, these guys ran 3 wide for 8 rows deep for what, like 15 to 20 laps? Kevin LePage could never do that. And at the end of the day, the intensity that you saw was absolutely incredible. Easily the best race of the Gen 7 era on a super speedway, for sure. These guys were out there racing with intensity. You could feel it. And obviously being at the racetrack is different than watching it on the broadcast, but I've gone back and watched most of the broadcast. And I can say, like, you could tell that it was definitely intense. These guys were racing for their playoff lives. Alex Bowman, Chase Elliott, Ty Gibbs, even Bubba Wallace there for a while. Everybody felt like they were, they knew what they had to do, and they had ramped it up. And that's what NASCAR wanted, right? They wanted to make these drivers squirm in their seats. They wanted to keep fans on the edge of their seats. And I think they accomplished both of them, because that race had a bit of everything. 3 wide action. It only got strung out for just a little bit. SpaceX launched a rocket over the backstretch, which I guess the broadcast didn't talk about. But being there in person was pretty crazy to see because it was at the stage end, and you're trying to watch what's happening with the race because you want to see how that's going to be, and obviously the intensity picks up at the end of the stage. But at the same time, I don't live in Florida. I don't see rockets get shot off ever. So seeing that come up on the horizon there was really cool to see. I woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning Friday night to watch the manned launch to go to the International Space Station. Me and just 100 other people standing down on the beach. Like, that's pretty cool. And it was really cool. So this race had a bit of everything, for being honest. You had 17 different leaders, 22 lead changes, only 3 cautions, and everybody walked away from their wrecks at the end of the day, which is more than you can ask for, right? Obviously, strategy played a bit of a role there for a little while. And we'll talk about the wrecks real quick. Obviously, you had that massive wreck at the end of the stage, which collected, well, Ty Gibbs went down, hooked Ryan Blaney, sent him into the wall, Dale Earnhardt style. Thankfully, safety advancements allowed Ryan Blaney to climb out of his car. And that was really nice to see, obviously. Shout out to the Hans device and safer barriers, because those played a major factor in Ryan Blaney being able to walk away from that wreck. Ty Gibbs, on the other hand, gets turned because of a bump from teammate Christopher Bell. I'm not sure. Have we heard from Christopher Bell yet? It's Monday. I'm still not sure if he's okay. We might have a bit of a Kim Jong-un situation here from Joe Gibbs. Big Gibbs, because he is known to go out and knock a team or two off if they're getting a little bit too close to his team. I'm not here to say they wouldn't do that to a driver, but, maybe we need to send out a wellness check for old Christopher Bell there. But thankfully, everybody got out and walked away from that accident. Ricky Stenhouse, if you're at the track, you knew that he was pissed off because he was the only car running, revving the absolute piss out of this car to try to get somebody to push him to pit road. Obviously, NASCAR red flags it, and Ricky still just was not happy at all, and I don't blame him. He should have been upset. They somehow delivered Austin Cindric's car to the wrong pit box and then put it backwards in his pit box, and then the team was like, take it to the garage. And that took 3 whole caution laps to figure that disaster out, so maybe we get a little bit better at that. And then you have the Ryan Preece wreck. Obviously, one of the most terrifying wrecks I think we've ever seen. Absolutely horrific. The amount of momentum that car seemed to almost gain as it was flipping was absolutely wild to see. And then to see it in person, I honestly thought there were 2 cars that had flipped because that wreck went on for so long. I saw him take off, and then he hits, he rolls, and then he launches back up again. And you could see it all from the grandstand, and I thought that 2 cars had flipped over. Just come to find out that it was only Ryan Preece, and thankfully he got out of the car, obviously stayed overnight in the hospital and was released on Sunday morning, but it was not fun to be there. I mean, if you've ever been at a race and you've had big accidents happen, I was at Indy 500 qualifying when Sebastian Bourdais smashed the wall and broke his pelvis, and this eerie silence falls over the whole racetrack. And that's kind of what happened again. Obviously, very quickly we found out that he was okay because he got out of the car. But a terrifying wreck. And I've seen a bunch of people be like, oh, it's because they have the underbody on these cars and they're too sealed off. That's why when he got sideways, he flipped over. It's not why. That's not why the car flipped over. He does hit the grass, and I think there's just enough of a bounce right there going by the chicane for the backstretch of the road course, the Rolex 24 course, that sent him up and over and on his way tumbling. But it is weird that the 3 cars we've seen flip over on super speedways in the Gen 7 era have all been Fords, and then you can even throw in Chris Buescher's flip at the Coke 600 last year. They've all been Fords, so it's just, I think, a weird coincidence. But Harrison Burton went over in his wreck. Chase Briscoe went up, didn't actually go over though. I should have clarified that. He came back down, and the roof flaps did their job. And then you have Priest going over, his roof hatch open, which was not ideal for him. I'm sure that was terrifying for him, but thankfully he's okay. Obviously NASCAR is going to go back and study it, but man, that was Rusty Wallace violent of a wreck. And hopefully we don't see something like that again, because yikes, that wasn't great. So overall, I give this race a 90, right? Really good racing. The best super speedway racing we've seen with this car. One of the better super speedway races you've seen in probably in the last 10 years. You got guys, multiple lanes, multiple different leaders. Guys can make moves. They could come from the front, go to the back. Obviously, passing is still a little bit hard, but I think there's some tweaks that they could make there to make the cars better. At the same time, though, it was a really good all-around race. Chris Buescher picks up his 3rd win in the last 5 weeks. Michael Jordan was there. He gave Booty Barker a hug, which is just... Booty Barker, Michael Jordan being like friends is just such a weird pairing. And like, obviously I know that is employee and boss, but just the fact that they have a relationship, I never would have thought that Booty Barker... I saw Booty Barker not too long ago at an ARCA race at Salem when he was working for JGR. So the fact that he's now sitting on pit road Daytona with Michael Jordan is kind of wild. For the Chase Elliott fans, the normal ones, you had a really good showing from your driver. The crazy ones, I'm sure, are going to have some sort of wild complaint to have about that. But overall, like, it had a bit of everything and nothing really negative. Obviously, we don't want to see Ryan Preece's wreck. We don't want to see Ryan Blaney go head on into the wall, but we didn't have a wreck coming to the line, which was nice to see. You had an RFK 1-2, and Brad's super psyched about that, which is a cool story in itself. It was just a good weekend overall for NASCAR at Daytona, and I don't think we don't leave many super speedways with this great, like, feeling, right? I think a lot of times we're like, oh man, that things got to change because it's getting too dangerous. Obviously, Ryan Preece's wreck, we don't want to see that happen every weekend, but take that out, and it was a pretty decent race overall and pretty respectful, all things considered. So let me know in the comments, what are you giving this race on a 1 to 100 scale? I guess 0 to 100. If you want to give it a 0, that's always a possibility as well. So like and subscribe to the channel. Follow me on TikTok at BreakHard, Instagram, Twitter, and Threads at BreakHardBlog.